This investigation actually began about 13 years ago. My former colleague here at News 6, Tony Pipitone, had done an extensive investigation into Michael Anthony Nelson. Tony had learned that while Nelson was in federal custody for a series of frauds, he was actually leaving a halfway house during the day and going to what turned out to be a phony law firm. It was an impressive story. Well, about a month ago, I was talking to our receptionist here at News 6, and she was asking whatever happened to this guy. We didn't know, so I started looking into it, and that is what got the ball rolling for my investigation here. What I discovered was that Michael Nelson actually just got out of prison a little less than a year ago, and he moved back here to Orlando. He's on federal probation as we speak. It made me curious, what is he up to now? After all, federal prosecutors have described him as a serial con man. We just wanted to see what he was doing. I had no idea what we would find. At first I didn't notice anything, but then I put in Google his home phone number, and that's when this all unraveled. Using his home phone number in Google, I stumbled upon the website for Global LGBT Life Church. Now, what's interesting is this website had only been established a few weeks before I discovered it. Any earlier, and I may have missed this. Now, in this website, the man who now describes himself as Reverend Michael Nelson is the senior pastor of this church, or so he says. Now, we are not in a position to say whether or not this church is legitimate, but upon looking at the church's website, I had some significant questions. Now, let me point out right now that the website I'm about to show you has changed dramatically after we began looking into this. But one of the things I noticed on the church's website was this photo that specifically says that this sanctuary right here shows a Hanukkah celebration in the main sanctuary of Global LGBT Life Church on December 24th, 2016, just a couple months ago. Well, one of my favorite investigative tools is called a Google image search. You can put in an image and see if it appears on any other website. And I discovered that this sanctuary actually belongs to a church in Minnesota. It is not Global LGBT Life Church like this caption describes. Then there's another church that was shown on Pastor Nelson's website, showing this one. I actually drove by this church on my way to Nelson's home. It's a New Bethel AME church, just a few blocks from where Nelson is. The pastors at either of those churches say they have nothing to do with his organization. Then, scattered throughout the church website were these photos of Michael Nelson speaking to a group. After I started looking into this, I actually stopped by Mr. Nelson's home. We had a lengthy interview. You can see some clips of it here on this website. But talking to Mr. Nelson, he could not explain to me where he was in this photograph and who all these people are in this room. Now, keep in mind, not only were these on his church website, it's his Facebook profile picture, his Twitter profile picture. He's only been out of prison 8 months. It was fair to say a little hard to believe that he couldn't identify the location. His explanation was, I speak to so many groups, I don't know where this is. I wanted to find out where he was. It was puzzling me. Now, I was looking at clues in the photograph, and I noticed in one of the other pictures there was a bulletin board for job listings, and I wondered if this was some sort of job recruitment center. Doing some searches, I found that Goodwill Industries has job recruitment centers, and their logo uses the same color blue as you see in this banner over here. So I started to think this was Goodwill Industries. Then I took a look at this photo where you can see out the front window and you can see a decal on the window. I looked around and Goodwill Industries has a building out in East Orange County. This is from a Google Street View, and I saw that exact same decal. So bingo, I knew that is where he was speaking. So despite the suggestion on his church's website that those people might be related to his church, I found out he was actually giving a job presentation. He was recruiting employees for a cleaning company. That part I understand was legitimate, but it had nothing to do with his church, even though that was on his church website. So, but one of the most, I think, troubling things or curious things about Pastor Nelson's website was this claim about his fundraising efforts. When I found the website, it said that as of December 31st, Global LGBT Life Church had raised nearly $293,000 of its $300,000 goal. They just had a little bit more than $7,000 left to go. Now, that's quite impressive for a church that seems to have only been in existence for a few weeks. When I interviewed Mr. Nelson about it and pointed out the fact that because he's on federal probation, he has to tell his probation officer about any of his financial dealings, I said, well, what about all this money? And that's when he looked into the camera and said, I need to make it perfectly clear, I have raised no money. That may be true, but then why does his website say he's raised nearly $300,000? That's when he started trying to explain to me, well, some of the other clergy members in my church raised this money. Well, who are those clergy members, I asked. Going back and forth, he would not give me any of their names. Now, interestingly, right after our interview that night, he did another one of his YouTube sermons, a webcast basically, at which he said, thank God I have not raised any more money. Now, certainly a bit unusual that someone would be celebrating the fact that their financial fundraising efforts have been wildly unsuccessful, but he wanted to make it clear he had not raised any money. A couple days later, this description on his website completely vanished. Now, that's just something for you to consider whether you would decide to donate to this church. We are just beginning to pull the string on this one. It seems like there is going to be a lot more to find out about what Michael Nelson has been doing since he got out of prison. I'm going to keep hammering on it. I'm going to keep investigating it, and we just hope you keep watching it.